Good evening and welcome to BATV News. I'm Andrew Laidley. Opposition leader Portia Simpson-Miller says her 43 years in representational politics have taught her that the budget presented by Audley Shaw last Thursday could have been avoided. Mrs. Simpson-Miller was making her final budget presentation as PNP leader. Nordia Francis Williams reports.
Opposition leader Portia Simpson-Miller says the national outcry the government now faces regarding the new tax package could have been avoided if the government did not make promises it couldn't keep.
This could have been avoided. We could have had a budget without the government imposing almost $29 billion in taxation. It is the reckless political promises which were made without regard for the fiscal realities of the country that causes us to be at this point today.
She says most of the people who are being asked to bear the burden in the 2017-2018 tax package will not benefit from the government's 1.5 tax break.
We warned that if the tax threshold was lifted to the promised 1.5 million, you would have had to impose new taxes on the backs of the people. That is what we said. This is what is now happening. The member from East Central, St. Andrew, warned you. I warned you. Now hundreds of thousands of Jamaicans will have to pay even though they will not benefit.
Mrs. Simpson-Miller argues that the government's tax package is reckless.
They will have to bear the cost of your recklessness. This could have been avoided. As one person told me, it is the biggest political trick to have ever been perpetrated on the Jamaican people. In fact, 15 minutes after the presentation by the Minister of Finance, someone tweeted, and I quote, chapter 1 of 1 Andrew verse 2. I don't know why they did it. The announcement did not come from the Prime Minister. It came from the Minister of Finance. And he said, I may give you 1.5, but I will take 1.6. Such is the road to prosperity. End of quote.
For BATV News, I'm Nordia Francis Williams.
And the House of Representatives passed a bill entitled the Telephone Calls Tax Act 2017. The act will allow the government to legally collect tax on telephone calls, a revenue measure which it has been exercising since 2012. More in this report. The bill was proposed in 2012, but it wasn't legally instituted. Finance Minister Audley Shaw, who brought the matter before the House, explained that telephone operators have been collecting tax based on a technical note issued by the Tax Administration of Jamaica, TAJ.
The House will recall revenue measures for fiscal year 2012-2013, where one of the proposals was the imposition of a special tax on incoming international telephone calls, terminating on a public mobile network in Jamaica and on calls originating in Jamaica. It was proposed that 5 Jamaican cents per minute would be imposed on calls originating and terminating on a public fixed network in Jamaica. 40 cents per minute would be imposed on all domestic and international calls originating on a public network in Jamaica. And 75 cents US per minute would be imposed on all international calls terminating on a public mobile network in Jamaica.
Minister Shaw says tax on telephone calls has suffered in recent years with the advent of data usage.
What I can say, though, is that in recent discussions with at least one of the major carriers, it can be confirmed that the increasing propensity for the usage of data and WhatsApp calls and so on is without question placing some kind of a dent on the revenue of the major carriers. And to that extent, if it's placing a dent on voice revenue, then ultimately that has to affect the rate of our intake as well.
He pointed out that the government earns very little from data usage, indicating that this is a matter which needs to be looked at.
It calls into question whether we are earning much from the data portion of it, which itself perhaps needs to be reviewed.
For BATV News, I'm Andrew Laidley. Senior Lecturer of Sociology at the University of the West Indies, Dr. Orville Taylor, says with the surplus the National Housing Trust has, it should be properly operated as a financial institution. He was making a presentation at Victoria Mutual Wealth Management's post-budget review held recently. Anthony Morgan reports.
Dr. Orville Taylor says while he will not oppose the Prime Minister that the NHT is a financial institution, the agency should not have been in a position to have that type of surplus.
An NHT that is supposed to be providing 9,000 housing solutions is just about to meet its mandate. It's an embarrassment on the part of governments over the years that they have such a surplus at all. An efficient NHT, a socially efficient NHT, should be having so little money that it should be asking, because if it is fulfilling its mandate, it really shouldn't have that kind of surplus for people to reaping.
He says he also has some concerns over the funds being set aside for housing activities by the government.
And I'm not sure what the government means by saying that 2,159 housing solutions will be completed. I understand that. But another 25.572 million will be spent on housing activities. Not sure. But, you know, I've learned very hard about that. But this is one out of many other things that I have to consider.
Meanwhile, Dr. Taylor is commending the government on plans for pension reform.
Absolutely important. I don't know why it took so long, because it's a great paradox, because on the one hand you have an aging labor force. People have higher levels of competence and are being forced to retire. I would caution the government as well as the trade unions involved, because any kind of change in your pension plan, especially with the government workers, involves a breach of contract. Right? It cannot be done unilaterally, and must be done with deep participation of all of the social partners.
For BATV News, I'm Anthony Morgan.
Still to come, Sagicor confirms Richard Ball's retirement, but says he's not going too far. We'll explain after the break. Welcome back. Sagicor confirmed Richard Ball's retirement as president and the CEO of Sagicor Group today. The retirement is effective in a few weeks. However, Mr. Ball isn't leaving the group fully. Anthony Morgan has that report.
Current chairman of Sagicor Group Jamaica, Danny Williams, has confirmed that President and CEO Richard Ball is stepping down on April 30. Mr. Ball, who served in the capacity for some 13 years, believes it is time to leave.
I am at retirement age, in fact a year beyond it, and those are our company rules. But in addition, I am ready. I've been 26 years as a CEO, 13 at Panjam and 13 here at Sagicor. Every quarter I've had to report to the board and to the stock exchange and to our shareholders. So I've had 104 quarters of reports, and that's a little tiring.
However, Mr. Ball will remain a part of the Sagicor Group. He's slated to take on the chairmanship of the group from Danny Williams, who is retiring. Mr. Ball will take on the chairmanship on June 1, and he says he's looking forward to the change.
It's not that I'll be not as intensely involved, it's just that I'll be looking at it from a higher altitude, not as down. And I like that. It involves policy, strategy. I'm looking forward to working with Chris Zucker on that. Constantly looking forward and trying to map the future is vital for a successful business, and that's something I really want to do in the next couple of years.
In the meantime, Mr. Biles is set to be replaced as president and the CEO of Sagicor by business executive Christopher Zaka effective May 1. Mr. Zaka says he's excited to lead.
Richard Biles has done a tremendous job with Sagicor in Jamaica, and I am taking over from him at the top of the pile, meaning that Sagicor is a leader in innovation in the financial services industry in Jamaica. It's number one in my view, and I have a tremendous team of people at all levels of Sagicor. So my approach will be to build on that foundation, to embrace the team, and to move from strength to strength.
He's also throwing his support behind Richard Biles in his new role.
There could be no better person to have as chairman of the board that I report to, and his presence gives me comfort.
For BATV News, I'm Anthony Morgan.
Meanwhile, the incoming Sagicor Group CEO and President Chris Zaka says he is opposed to the government's position to taxing health insurance.
So I think the tax is a negative one, and it will affect the health sector negatively in Jamaica, and I just hope that there is some accommodation on that.
However, he's commending the Holness administration for their current pension reform efforts.
I think there's opportunities in pension reform because the authorities are moving to deregulate and to open up capital to investment in Jamaica in other areas than they are now restricted to. And I think that gives us at Sagicor some opportunities, and that's an exciting future development that I look forward to.
CEO of Grace Kennedy Group, Don Webby, says his company will venture into agency banking arena this year. He says it's one of the company's strategic goals. Here's more.
Over the years, the GK brand has increasingly been associated with money services. Group CEO Don Webby says it's time for the company to take another step, particularly in the business of agency banking.
We're going to be rolling out agency banking. We believe that we have a significant competitive advantage there. We have over 150 locations for Western Union, Grace Kennedy Money Services. For 2017, the target is to roll out 20, and within 2 years, we expect to roll out at least 50 agency banks throughout Jamaica.
He says the move is aligned with the government's mandate to promote financial inclusion and ease of doing business.
The whole concept of financial inclusion, again, that is going to be a key strategic objective of Grace Kennedy. And if you think about it, we have GKI, we have First Global Bank, and we have Grace Kennedy Money Services. So what you'll see in terms of a location for Grace Kennedy Money Services, you're going to be seeing microinsurance being offered there. You're going to be seeing GKMP, which we'll touch on a little later there. You're going to be seeing an agent bank and also micro-lending.
Mr. Webby says agency banking will position Grace Kennedy as a formidable competitor in the money services sector.
We believe that throughout the network in Jamaica, our strategy of financial inclusion will be solidified sometime in 2017 in terms of offering those products in one location.
For BATV News, I'm Norda Francis Williams.
Stay with us. Regional and international stories are next. Welcome back. It's time for regional and international news. Barbados Prime Minister Frondell Stewart says the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, is not on the agenda for the government on the heels of warnings from his predecessor Owen Arthur that the stressed economy urgently needed a helping hand from the Washington-based financial institution to stave off a $3.3 billion debt crisis. Prime Minister Stewart dispelled the notion that the island was so poorly off that it had no other option. He made it clear that if and when the island had to go that route, he would not shy away from it. Former PM Arthur had argued that Barbados could not afford to turn its back on the opportunity to have its debt restructured under a fund program, pointing out that it could get as much as $750 million at 1% interest. The Federal Reserve raised the interest rates yesterday as it signaled it will stick to a gradual path of future hikes. Russell Chen reports.
The U.S. Federal Reserve raised interest rates for the second time in 3 months. It based its decision on steady economic growth, strong job gains, and confidence that inflation is rising to its 2% target. Fed Chair Janet Yellen.
Today, the Federal Open Market Committee decided to raise the target range for the federal funds rate by 1/4 percentage point, bringing it to 3/4 to 1%. Our decision to make another gradual reduction in the amount of policy accommodation reflects the economy's continued progress toward the employment and price stability objectives assigned to us by law.
The Fed also said there will be 2 more rate hikes this year and 3 more in 2018. John Lonsky of Moody's Analytics.
Fascinating to me would be how the 10-year Treasury yield fell in response to the rate hike, and moreover on the equity side, one of the strongest performing sectors in the U.S. equity market dealt with housing sector share prices. This is suggesting that the upside for both short and long-term interest rates is viewed as being limited by the financial markets and perhaps also by the Fed.
After the Fed's decision was announced, stock markets extended gains and bond yields fell. The dollar was trading lower against a basket of currencies.
Families in Sudan are struggling to put food on the table because of rising commodity prices. Many children are suffering from malnutrition as a result, and business owners say they are worried about the impact it's having on their livelihood. Al Jazeera's Heba Morgan reports.
It's mealtime for Rhoda and her children, but all she can afford is a pot of beans. Now, one of her children is suffering from malnutrition. She says high prices at the market make a balanced diet impossible.
Sometimes we skip meals, and sometimes we only have beans. It has affected my children's health and their development. Kids who have a good diet develop well, but little food has affected my children.
Rhoda and her children are some of the millions of people affected by Sudan's rising inflation, which has hit 33% in the past month. The country relies on imports to supply its markets, and cash supply for that has been low since South Sudan gained independence in 2011, taking the area's oil reserves with it. Government decision to lift fuel subsidies in November and ban imports have also led to a rise in the cost of living. Now, goods that come in are sold at prices many can't afford. Half of the country's population live below the poverty line, and families like Rhoda's aren't the only ones with concern. Traders are having hard times too.
Consumption has decreased. Instead of people taking half a pound, they take a quarter. Where they used to buy a whole carton, they now buy less.
Prices have increased for locally produced goods because of low rains and shortages in hard currency to import goods.
Many say their commodities pass their expiry date without being sold.
As inflation continues to push the prices higher, families fear they won't be able to afford even basic goods, and traders worry about the impact of that on their businesses.
But the Sudanese government is optimistic. After the partial lifting of the U.S. sanctions, which lasted nearly 20 years, the government is looking for support from foreign parties.
The African Development Bank has been giving us technical support, and they've given us a grant of $40 million to help develop our financial sector. They will also assist in projects that help in development, like capacity building, energy, work opportunities, and improving living standards.
But analysts say the government should look closer to home for a cause of inflation.
What has led to the rise in inflation are the austerity measures on fuel subsidies taken by the government at the end of 2016. This is the main reason for the high inflation. Sudan also has to benefit from the decision of the US to lift the ban and explore investments.
Rhoda works. She sells tea at the market. It never paid much, but at least she could afford to feed her family. Not anymore. Hiba Morgan, Al Jazeera, Khartoum.
China is leading talks on the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, a trade pact including Southeast Asian nations. More in this report.
Vietnam is in the export business. It's made the economy one of the fastest growing in the world. Its biggest customer is the United States, where these shirts are headed. Exports to the US earn twice as much as shipments to neighboring China, but that could be about to change.
We think that for now and very near future, we will concentrate to expand our export business to China, because it's a very big market.
And it's a business decision that's a lot easier to make now that the US has withdrawn from the Trans-Pacific Partnership, a trade deal that excluded China. The Trans-Pacific Partnership was about more than just trade, and there were positive and negative aspects to that. One of the positives is that it would have forced countries like Vietnam to reform labour laws, and that could have given greater rights to workers. Those same rules don't apply in the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership. That's another trade pact being negotiated that doesn't include the United States. It's led by Southeast Asian nations and backed by China, markets the Vietnamese government says its lucrative seafood industry should now focus on. At the moment, the US is the biggest buyer of Vietnamese fish. But the landscape is shifting under China's increasingly active role in globalization and US President Donald Trump's trade policy.
His America First approach should make most of our partners around the world a little bit worried that there will be less American attention and fewer American resources for the kinds of partnerships that we've had over the years.
Everybody would do by itself.
Business and government leaders in Vietnam say they're happy to increase dealings with China, but they also hope President Trump rethinks the TPP.
Mr. Trump have to consider that isolationist and America First can be very detrimental to the U.S. economy.
In garment factories, the workers take regular breaks to revitalize the mind and the body. Vietnam has moved ahead at a rapid pace and is determined to continue, even if the United States wants to dance on its own for a while. Wayne Hay, Al Jazeera, Hanoi.
Talking Stocks is after the break. Welcome back. Time now for Talking Stocks. 46 stocks traded today, of which 23 advanced, 20 declined, and 3 traded firm. The main JSE index advanced by 2,498 points to close at 225,903 points. The junior index also advanced by 28 points to close at 3,031 points. Over 6 million units traded, valued at more than $134 million on the Jamaican dollar market. And on the US dollar market, over 175,000 units traded, valued at over 54,000 US dollars. Sagicor Group, with over 1 million units changing hands, accounted for 27% of the market volume. Panjam Investment was second with over 1 million units trading. Lasco Manufacturing, with over 409,000 units, accounted for 6% of the market volume, crossing the floor. Caribbean Cement Company was a top advancer, up $3.44 to close at $35.31, followed by Jamaican Teas up 63 cents to close at $8, and Jamaica Producers up $1.24 to close at $17.18. The main decliners were Berger Paints losing $2.06 to close at $12.43, followed by Sterling Investment down $1.64 to close at $16.56. And Main Event Entertainment Group down 24 cents to close at $4.66. And that's all the news we have for this evening, but before we go, a recap of our top story. In her final budget presentation as PNP leader, Portia Simpson-Miller said the budget presented by Audley Shaw last Thursday could have been avoided if the JLP didn't make unrealistic campaign promises. Thanks for watching. For more content, visit our website at batvja.com. I'm Andrew Laidley. Pleasant viewing.